Welcome to the real journey of the entrepreneur. The journey of any entrepreneur begins with a decision, then writing down your vision, then the execution of that vision. It is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who understand how powerful your mind is and that you can truly create the life that you deserve. It does require a unique formula that includes belief in yourself, a lot of consistency, connecting with an OG, a lot of tears, missing out on a few events and things, and taking a whole lot of risks that will allow you to see your vision and dream come to pass. This journey of the entrepreneur is from the perspective of a wonderful mother, a business owner, whose goal is to break generational barriers and normalize the process of wealth building and financial wellness through entrepreneurship, all while creating a social and give back along the way. I am sharing this journey with you and invite you to share this process with me. Let's do this together. It's my own, but you have to feel comfortable to own it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I will always support you.
Thank you.
Well, hello there, good people. Hello. I hope that you all are doing amazing and that you are showing yourself some love and grace during these times. I'm so excited to have you join another phenomenal episode of the real journey of entrepreneurship. I can tell you that if you have been paying attention to this specific season, the entrepreneurs are courageous, the entrepreneurs are bold, and they're also in a space where they're looking to provide us with information to help us to be successful. And guess what? My next guest is no different, but I'm going to just pause a bit, just slightly, because I think it's important for you to say, hey. Welcome to the show, because I can tell you that I have the best seat in the house, the best seat in the house, primarily because I get to have grateful and courageous conversations with those who really want to tell the truth about what it really means to be in this space of entrepreneurship, because I can tell you that one, it is not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. But it is doable with consistency, with writing down your goals and writing down and having a vision that you have specifically for your life. My name is Anita Pearson. I'm the founder and CEO of 11375. We are here to support you and your business goals through financial education, through workshops, through government contracting, and also our coaching services. So if you are looking for some of our services, please be sure to check us out at 11375. Now, today's topic focuses on a specific space where a lot of us hide. There's high statistics that it causes so many challenges in our lives, and finances and financial literacy as it relates to your personal space and also being in business. It plays a critical role in your quality of life. How financially educated are you? How financially well are you? What does that look like? There are times when I was working that I was, in a space where I had a significant amount of debt. There was times in my space where I lived paycheck to paycheck early on when I was working. And there was a time when I had a significant amount of credit card debt, and I thought I was hiding from those who I owed that debt to. And sometimes it can cause a lot of stress, not sometimes. A lot of times when you are not aware how to manage your finances, it causes an immense amount of stress. But I'm here to tell you that we are not alone in this space of becoming financially well. One of the things that I definitely know, and my guests will share today, some tips and tools about how to become financially well, and the compare and contrast of what it really means to be in this space of being financially well. The founder and CEO of Making Money Movers NYC stems from a personal journey, a desire to make positive impact on and within undeserved communities. Hazel realized the difference a strong financial education foundation in youth would have earlier on in her life, and also the lives of others. And what we're going to unpack today is a personal journey of someone who is really dedicated to changing the narrative of what our communities look like. So, enough of me, because I can tell you many, many, many stories about, my financial woes. But you came to see me, but you also came to see Hazel. Hi, Hazel. Good day. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, Anita. I'm excited to be here.
We're excited to have you because we know that you're going to get us in line.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We know that you are going to get us in line.
No, I
That's it.
hope so. At least to give at least the beginning, the starting line to whatever comes next. Absolutely would love to do that.
So tell me. I started to read just a little bit of your bio. Tell me why you got started. You are the founder and CEO of Making Money Movers NYC. Do tell.
So my first and most important role is mom, right? I'm a
Mhm.
mom of three young adults. Well, two young adults, one soon to be young adult, and they are definitely my inspiration and part of a huge part of my why. Wanting to give my children a better experience in life in comparison to the one I had, especially in the early stages, but also being a first generation Dominican American, right? Being the eldest in a household, a single parent household where my mom didn't understand or know fully about the American economy. And so I had to learn things as I went. And then when I finally learned in my 20s, all that was out there that was available to me that could have been available to me earlier in life, I made a lot of mistakes that could have been prevented, and I could have made a lot of a more thoughtful, intentional choices earlier on, and started my quote unquote American dream at an earlier phase of life, right? So I definitely find that it is important and extremely valuable to have at least a little bit more education when it comes to finance, with especially for your personal finance journey. And then on top of that, giving that knowledge to the next generation, right? So we can then shift that cycle and continue to grow, because every time you share, they take that information and they grow upon it, right? Like we teach our kids what we can, we give them that foundation, and that foundation they continue to build on that. So just giving them that foundation to start with so they can continue to grow, and then within that create that transgenerational system that's going to continue to evolve into, I'm not going to say richness, but the richness is in education. Maybe it will, right? Because it depends on everyone's personal goals, but that richness will come based on what your goals are and what your whys are.
Mm. Okay. So I'm going to say, where do I begin? Because you have um, huge whys as to why you are engaged. Not those are not light at all. But before I get into that, I'm curious about um, this this space of duality that you're functioning in, right? As a mom, as an entrepreneur, but you have a lot of credentials. Even as I'm looking at, you know, the letterings behind the LMNSW, the CFSW, the CFEI.
Yes.
Like, what is all? How does that all combine? Into building this specific dream or thing that you're building, that you're creating for the future. How does all of that combine in?
Great question. So, first and foremost, I am a social worker, and that is my career. My career is as a social worker. That's what I went to school for. And that's really what is beneath what I do in my company. It's not just about the financial education piece. Is about supporting with compassion, allowing people to understand how to give themselves grace when going through this journey. And so I move forward in getting a CFSW, which is a certified financial social work credential, because again, it goes in more depth, along the lines of understanding people's relationship with money, where it stems from, where it is, and how to help them get through that process of shifting their mindset into what it is that they want to achieve. And of course, you have to be able to educate. And my CFEI is my certification as a certified financial education instructor. And that is what allows me to understand how to work with individuals and groups, because I am trained to educate. It's not just that I picked up knowledge here and there and I put it together. I put myself through a very rigorous course in order to be able to fully understand how to be most effective when providing financial education.
And that's really amazing, that you shared your credentials, because a lot of times I can even say myself that I teach. I do not have all of the certifications, but I use my working experience, because I have the experience of working in financial services, to be able to talk to those that I coach. But I appreciate the the work that you have gone through, just to be able to help us to become better holistically as business owners and also personally. But I wanna land a bit, and just talk about what you mentioned about the relationship with
Mm,
money. Um, I'll start. I didn't have the sexiest relationship with money at all. I was not taught. I learned because I was in significant amount of credit card debt. That was my learning. I learned how to get out of that credit card debt, and the debt that I do have is more relational to my business more than personal now. So that was the aha, the embarrassment, the shift for me personally, and a lot of those practices I use within my business now.
mm,
Now, in your space, I'm sure that you see a lot of us that are, ducking, bobbing, and weaving, and have not matured in that space where looking at our relationship, our what's the word I'm looking for, our traumas that we have not appropriately healed. What have you seen within your space, being the founder and CEO of Making Money Movers, and what are some of the ways that you can advise us or share or provide tips and tools to help us to have a better relationship with it,
mm.
the tool?
Yeah, yeah, money wounds are real. Money wounds are a real
Mm,
thing for sure. And we all have them to some capacity, whether we realize it directly or indirectly. Like, for example, I can only imagine what the effects of the pandemic are going to have on
mm,
the generation that had to go through it, right? And so, even though they may not have consciously thought about how am I going to manage money when I become older, it has impacted what they are going to feel about money as they get older. And it is a feeling, like, the way we feel about money, the way we think about money, the way we manage our money, it all comes from somewhere. Part of it is what we grew up with, and the other part of it is who we are as a person, what our character is like. So you can grow up in the same household and grow up in complete poverty, right? And there could be multiple siblings. You might have one sibling who, because they grew up in poverty, is now super frugal and doesn't want to spend because they never had, and they want to have, and they want to save. And their goal is for saving, let's say, for retirement, so that they can have something to enjoy when they get older. So they're going to work hard and get it. Others might be like, well, I didn't grow up with anything. Now I'm making some money. I need to show that I have money now. And so I'm going to go buy the name brand stuff. And and there's nothing wrong with any of it if you're able to be okay with it. You see what I'm saying? So if you're able to be at peace with, let's say, not spending a lot now, and wanting to save for later, and knowing that you're not going to enjoy certain things right now, okay, then that's your preference. But if you're having feelings about that, then let's talk about how we can give you some more balance, some more so you're comfortable with not that level of saving, but maybe doing something in between that is fun, so you can say, I am enjoying my money now, but I'm going to enjoy it as well later. And on the other side of it, if you are spending money because you're like, I never have it, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, which I think about 74% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. If that feels uncomfortable to you, but you still want to live a lifestyle where you're buying the name brand things and you want to show that you have money, then let's figure out how you can scale back a little bit. What types of things can you, what are your non-negotiables and what are your negotiables? And let's work on the negotiables to kind of bring that down so that now you have a little bit more that maybe you're saving, right? Or you're not buying the $2,000 pair of jeans, but maybe you're buying the $500 pair of jeans, so that you're still getting the satisfaction of what you need from your spending, but at the same time you're helping yourself plan for what your actual goal is, because you're feeling uncomfortable about that paycheck to paycheck living. So again, that's why I say compassion and grace, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and judge you as we're going through your process, but at the same time you have to give yourself grace while you're going through the process. Just like going on a diet, you might fall off and mess up a couple of times, but if you're committed, get right back on there, get back onto your plan, and just move forward, and you'll make it happen. So that's really kind of where I try to encourage the people that I work with to kind of when I'm working on top in terms of finance, to think through that process so they can start to shift that mindset. It takes some time, because once you have a mindset, oof, but giving yourself and that time and space to kind of start to shift your mindset so you can achieve your personal finance goals, or at least get really close to it.
And it's interesting that as I was listening to you talk, you talked about some really interesting things. One, the pandemic, right? We all experienced it. Um, and in doing my research specifically for our conversation, there was some statistics that I looked up, and it talked specifically about Americans overall owing 1.3 trillion in credit card debt. And that's just credit card debt. It's not, it didn't describe, whether it was personal or business, but, that was one of the stats as of Q3 for 2023. And then 23% of US adults ages 18 to 29 have credit card debt that's overdue. So we talked about, and one of the things I want to follow up with is about how do we how do we right one, you talked about showing ourselves grace, because it can be very scary and very daunting when you're in this space and don't have the tools, right? Now that we are talking about the tools, what are some of the ways that one can navigate, once they get on that, that process of saying, okay, making a decision that they want to fix whatever it is that they want to fix, and how does budgets play into that specific space?
Budgets are huge, right? There are some people that don't like the word budget for whatever reason, and it's fine. For me, a budget is a plan. So if you want to call it a budget or call it a plan, whatever works for you. At the end of the day, it's just important that you know how you're allocating your funds, right? That allocation is super important. And so, for me, I don't mind using the word budget. And so in my budgeting, and again, and I don't stick to what you might see out there as the standard or the go-to, right? So you hear 50, 30, 20. Okay, that might work for some folks. A lot of times I work with young people, and that 50, 30, 20 doesn't work, right? Because they don't have the responsibility of an adult. But that's what's going out there. It's like that 50, 30, 20. So I say that to say, like, in your situation, it might be very different. Those numbers, if you can't stick to those numbers, it's okay. Don't. Figure out what the percentages do work for you. But at the end of the day, knowing how you're allocating your funds. And then, the idea is that you're saving some, you're spending some that's going to your expenses, and then some of it you're putting into a different type of pocket, figuring out what that pocket is, and then sticking to it, right? Writing it down, whether you are digital and you want to write it down digitally, or if you want to make an Excel document or buy a planner or use notebooks. The method doesn't matter as long as you're doing it and you're sticking to it and you're setting some time for yourself to sit down and be thoughtful and intentional about what you're doing with your money. So, for example, in going back to the pandemic, some folks really were in a lot of pain financially during the pandemic. They were really hurting tremendously. A lot of other folks flourished, right? Like they did things with their money where new businesses were started online, or because they were getting a certain amount, like for whatever, for unemployment, whatever, people that might have to get unemployment were just taking that money, and they were like, okay, I don't know how long this is going to last, and unemployment is, limited, so let me be thought, so whatever the case was, it was on the spectrum of what happened to folks during that pandemic. And that's why I said that our kids aren't going to be affected by that, because they lived it and it was in their house. They couldn't hide from it.
Mm.
So just thinking through what your intentions are and being intentional with your intentions is going to be important, by planning, by having a financial plan, and then taking action. And I believe in SMART goals. Like, I'm always about creating SMART goals. So whatever your allocations are, making sure that they're specific, measurable. They're, I always forget the letters for some reason, but I know that I do it. That they're time sensitive, that they're realistic, right? So just making sure that you are not just saying or putting it on paper, but the action plan behind it, that you are executing that as you're going through. It's extremely important to do that. Not only for personal finance, for business finance as well. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to be writing down what's going on in your business. I do it on a weekly basis, if not more. Like, I definitely have my financial Fridays is for personal, and like I literally have a day for finance, which is Fridays, for both personal and for business. But if I feel like I need to do a little bit more, I'll do it again, during the week. And as long as I have once a week, I'm happy. But that's my process, and I need to stick to that. Same with anybody else. Whatever your process needs to be, just make sure that you're doing it and you're executing it. And if you fall off again, just get back on and do it the next week, or whenever you want to start it over again. But yeah, budget and planning is super important.
So I appreciate a couple of things. Again, we're going back to grace, planning, and also what's realistic to your personal goals. So I can share that, during that time when I had that personal debt, I was single, and I couldn't imagine doing that now. Being married and have children, a child, and I said children, Lord, other responsibilities. Um, it's just different. But one of the things that I did do um, is when I was managing and navigating to pay down that debt, I created a budget, a full budget, and I included a line item that I labeled it a BS line item. That was specific for Anita. And the reason why I did that is because for me, being debt free, at that time, personally, I didn't have a business. I needed to be in a space where I still needed to fuel or feed this thing of shopping, right? That didn't go away from me. And even, still, I do it much less now. But I created that line item. I did, like, at the time it was like $500 a month that I would put in that specific space. And if I didn't spend it, I would invest it into, some stock or something like that. And I continue to do that even up until this day, although I spend a lot less because, I still like a good deal, right? I'm putting that in quotations. Or I still, appreciate fashion, whatever that means specifically to me. And it works because I know that, whatever those debts that I have, it's more towards the business now versus, personal things that I'm navigating in my space. But it also makes me feel a lot more responsible and showing myself some love and grace, because I understand that I'm no longer in that space, and I have awareness about how to navigate my budget versus what comes in, what goes, the expenses that go out to help me to live and to also run my business. But also because I have a little person and I don't want her to model any of those unhealthy relationships that I have with money. So even now we're talking more so about, what does how do you buy, when is it necessary, things are seasonal, just to fuel those things that still work for me. So I wanted to elevate that because you talk very specifically about, the importance of planning, the importance of, understanding where you are, in that space, and to help you grow and develop. Anything else you want to add to that? Because I just wanted to share, like, I just want to share what I do specifically.
I love that you mentioned that, and that's a great example. And it's also important to be able to do that because our financial situation can change from one day to the next, and just being able to understand, like you said, and be flexible and move with whatever's happening. Because I'll be very honest, there have been times. So my husband works in a position that's commission based. Like he's a real estate agent, and so the market can be really good and the market can go really bad. And so because we have things in place, there have been times where things have gotten a little challenging, right? Because the market gets really bad and there's not, especially the pandemic, that was like, whoa, right? And so, but I never wavered from my plan. I always still saved. I always still paid my bills. And did I acquire a little bit of debt? I did. But I never took away from what my goal was. So if I had to go from, and this is not an example personal, like because I have different vehicles in which I invest as well. But let's go with a basic $50 a month that goes into savings, for example. Then maybe I lowered it 25, but I'm still meeting that goal, right? I'm still doing and keeping that habit going of saving. I just had to reduce it a little bit in the time being because now I got to put $25 towards my debt. Right. So it really is important to understand what you're capable of doing, because we don't realize it sometimes. We don't even know what our money wounds are sometimes. I remember doing a workshop for parents, and she like you saw her eyes like whoa, like, and I was like, hi, and she shared, and she was saying how she had just realized that she doesn't like to spend because in her upbringing her dad was a gambler.
Oh, wow.
And it hit her in the moment. Something I said triggered a thought. And she was like, I just realized that. And her husband was there and he was like, yeah, she does not like to spend. Like, she just does not like to spend. And it's because she grew up not knowing when they would have money again. Right. And so that was something that she carried with her and hadn't identified fully. Right. And so that's why it's always really important to kind of be reflective and think about what might be influencing your thought process and your patterns and your habits. And once you identify it, that's the first step to making strides towards your goals, whatever those goals are. But I love that you said that, and I can completely also relate to something you said earlier about like the debt. Like I also do what I do because of my own personal experience. Like I said, I didn't have any knowledge really, and I did have to consolidate my debt. I think I did a credit recovery or something when I was in like college. I was in college still, listening to the wrong person, right? Because you also don't know. If you don't know, you're more likely to hear the wrong message from the wrong person that is in your life. So it was someone that I felt comfortable with, and they're like, yeah, do this and just keep a balance on your credit card, even if you can pay it so that you could build credit. That's not it, right? And so then I couldn't work anymore, and then I couldn't pay off the debt that I had acquired. But when I did have money, I wasn't paying it off in full. So it's like you if you don't know. So that for me is the important part. At least getting the information out there. So like I do with my kids, somewhere along the line, my voice will pop up in the back of your mind with the information, and you can apply it as you like. But as long as I can get the information out there, that is really my goal. That's really what I want to be able to do for the underserved and the lower socioeconomic communities.
So let's pivot a bit to the work that you are engaged in your business. So making money movers.
Mm.
Who is your target that you are currently? You say underserved, but I think you're empowering all of us holistically as a community. You want to share a bit?
Yeah, so I'm able to work with a broad range of ages, as young as 5, really. But right now, my target audience in my business is, for the most part, adolescents between the ages of 14 and 19, because I feel had I had the information at that age when I first started working, if I had an idea of what it was to create better habits, to even understand a paycheck, I would have made much better choices. Like, I don't even know who FICA was. Like, I was like, who's FICA? Like, like, what is all this? I just know, I knew it came out of my paycheck, and it was like, okay, so if I was supposed to bring home 500, I only brought home like 450, and I have no idea why. Like, I just didn't understand all of that. So just that, even having that little basic knowledge can do a lot for a person, because you can, we can make your plans with realistic information. And so that is why that's my focus right now. Like, a lot of the work that I've been doing lately has been with that demographic. And I say up to 19 because also there's a transition there when they graduate high school, and whatever they do post-secondary, whether that's going to college, going into the military, working a job, to be on their own, going to trade school, whatever those things are, like, you are now starting to get into the adulting phase. And that what you do in the first few years of adulting can really truly influence what the rest of your adult life, because that's it, you're not a kid anymore, it's done, it's over with, the rest of your life is an adult. And so that is my market right now that I'm focusing on. But I just did something with middle schoolers the other day, and I love middle schoolers, and I'm getting ready to work with some businesses, some on small business owners in the upcoming months. So like I said, I just want to get the word. It's a passion of mine. Like, I get excited to think about who else I can give knowledge and foundation to. So yeah, yes, I know it's a long-winded answer, but like I said, I get passionate about it, and especially when I work with the teenagers, and they're like, "But Miss," because I don't know why they call you Miss, but Miss, but Miss, like, and then just they just like start to, I can invest, yeah, with your parent. I can have my own bank account, yeah, absolutely. Like, their mind is like blown. They're like, wow, I didn't know I could do all this at my age. I thought I had to wait. No, let's not wait. Let's get you into good habits now, so you can know what you got to do once you can take it on for yourself. So yeah.
And so, for those who are going to be watching via video, I have Hazel's website up, Making Money Movers, where there is an abundance of information, complimentary resources, um, but specifically financial education for individuals and organizations. And one of the things that I really, really appreciate, besides the beautiful picture, great photo,
Thank you.
is really highlighting personal financial education. There are classes and workshops, but it was about the resources, because a lot of times when we're in these spaces and we're looking for ways that we can reduce the shame, a lot of times um, most businesses have excuse me, information where you can vet them out, do a complimentary initial consulting call, just to kind of ensure that there is a feeling of safety. And the reason why I say that, and I don't know if you've experienced this in your space, that when I start, even with coaching, part of my business is that I'm a business coach, and there is a grounding or a safe space that is needed.
Mhm.
I always talk about money, especially when we're talking about doing business plans. Like, I don't shy away from it at all, because I know how important it is. If you're looking to get into certain spaces, or if you're looking to gain access to capital, I know extremely how important it is. So I don't shy away. But I wanted to ask you a question, which was regarding your um, initial consulting, because I know that we talked about earlier about really um, showing grace to one another. When someone comes to you, they're like, "Hey, I want to, or I think I may want to deal with my finances." How do you navigate that barrier of shame and fear?
Mm, that's such a great question. It's such a good question. So as you're talking, it just reminds me, especially growing up as a Latina,
Mm,
for many things, it's like, sal del cuarto, son los
mm,
adultos que están hablando. Like, you have to leave the room, the adults are talking, right?
right,
And I
right.
believe my husband is Black American. I believe he told me the same thing. There were times where the kids had to leave the room because it was an adult only space. And I find that can be very detrimental to the kids. And I'm not saying sit there and tell them all your money wounds and sit there and tell them all your money woes. But there are so many learning opportunities that we do not take advantage of when it comes to our kids. Something as simple as going grocery shopping. Why did you pick that cereal over that cereal? Right? What are you looking at, mom, when you're looking at the label that tells you the price of something? Like, oh, I'm looking at the price per unit, right? How much is per ounce versus this, right? So we can literally teach them that as they're going. So you're asking that, I'm like, man, I can totally relate to that because, and I know I'm probably going off on a tangent because I'm like, oh, that's such a great question to ask. Just ask your question again though, because I was just like, whoa, I love this question, but now I forgot what I wanted to say specifically
No,
to that.
it's more so about the navigating of the
Yes, thank
space.
you. Yes.
Uh,
So in that phone call, right? In that initial phone call with
the initial, just what do they do? How do they do it? Like, how do you, as a consultant, a coach, a licensed professional, break that barrier? Because I can share, like, for me,
hmm
um, I story tell
yeah,
immediately,
yeah,
because and especially when I know that I'm getting into the how's your credit? They're like, I wasn't expecting to talk about my credit, but you want me to help you as a coach. And then I start sharing. So what is your process? Like, how do you navigate those
yeah.
initial, when someone says, you know what, I want to book with you,
Mhm.
what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I let them talk first. I usually ask some introductory questions. First, I will ask what led you to scheduling this complimentary call. I gauge what their interests are. Some people want it for like an organization, like they want it for their group that they're like a nonprofit, they want it for their group or a community-based organization. Some are looking to do so individually. So it's the ones that are individual, it's a little more challenging because that's, it can be more difficult to speak one-on-one with someone. And so I just kind of give them a chance, and I'm listening to how they're saying certain things, like I'm picking up. So yeah, people say that because I did psychology as my bachelor's and I'm a social worker that I analyze, and I do, not in a bad way, right? It just helps me kind of meet you where you're at, right? So even sometimes I might get someone who immediately I hear it in their tone, they're from the neck of the woods that I grew up in. Like I hear that, like I know the lingo, like I know the tonality, I understand that, and I appreciate that because that's where I'm from. Like I can switch this up at any time because this is not how I grew up. Like I learned to speak in this way, from going, whatever my experiences. So then I realized, okay, they don't want someone who's gonna sound condescending, right? So then I'll speak to them in a way where they know I can relate to them, right? And it's just to establish that sense of I'm here for you. I've done role plays with people who in like in networks that I'm part of, and like, okay, let's play devil's advocate and let's see who's willing to deal with some challenges. And the person, I remember one specifically recently, the person's like, I need to get my nails done and I need to be able to, get my red bottoms. And I'm like, oh, fantastic, great. And I just, again, not judging, not shaming them, hearing them out and saying, yeah, no, we can talk about that. That's okay. And let's talk about how you got to that point. So let's, we'll have this complimentary call, but how can we talk? How can we do more for you? Because I feel like I'm hearing something, and tell me if I'm wrong. Am I hearing this? So from me analyzing that conversation, I'll say, I feel like I'm hearing this. And they're like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, I got you. I can do this with you. So what exactly would make the most sense for you? What would be your first top priority goal? Because they can come in with a lot. They'll come in, I need this, I need this. We got to focus on one first. And so being able to get them to the point where they're like, okay, this person understands me. In some cases, the person can relate. And also this person is letting me pace myself, and is not expecting me to work miracles one day to the next, because that sometimes can be very daunting. It can be like, I gotta do this now, don't I? Like I just have to make this happen and make this work, and I gotta make this money in the next 2 years. Hold on, says who? Who gave you that standard? Like who said, right? And sometimes it's their own internal conversation that they're having with themselves, and you just gotta bring them back to normal. So it's funny, in 30 minutes I can get a lot out of a person, and the biggest thing for me is that rapport. It's just letting them know that no matter what their background, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to hear you out, and I'm here to support your process to whatever goal is that we decide makes the most sense for you to start off with. Um, yeah, it's kind of nice though, especially those that because you don't get everyone. I'm not gonna sit here and say everyone I speak to goes with me. I'm not gonna say that at all. And it can be a combination of things. And again, that's fine. I do not get offended. I don't take it personal. I get it's like, when you are looking for like a therapist, not everybody is your match. Like you have to find that right match. And that's absolutely fine. But for those that we do seem to make a match and it seems to work out, that first conversation, they leave feeling comfortable that talking about money isn't going to, while it might produce anxiety because of what they have going on inside of them, it's not going to be anxiety that's coming from me. I'm not creating that for them. They have it and we're going to process through it, but it's not going to be difficult to have a conversation about money because I also make it very very nonchalant. Like I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about spending, let's talk about spending. You want to talk about debt. I normalize it because it is normal. And so once you hear that I am normalizing it and I'm not sitting there like, oh, you have so much debt, what, $20,000? Wow, I'm not gonna do that. I'm like, okay, $20,000 in debt. Okay, so what else is going on? Normalize it. That's
Mhm.
okay. This is your story. Let's keep writing it.
And I appreciate, and I'm just going to double back just slightly, but I wanted to capture this experience here. When you mentioned in Spanish, and the funny thing, when you mentioned it, I said, I know exactly what she's saying. That means I'm good now. But in the Black community, is children are not to be seen or not heard. And from the way that I am rearing, or it seems like some days it's the other way around, where my daughter is helping me and teaching me how to raise and rear her.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I recognize that I completely removed from that children are to be seen and not heard is that doesn't exist in my space. Because number one, um there are certain behaviors that comes with that, right? I want her to feel and to be seen and heard at all times,
Mhm.
right? I teach her to be respectful, but it's also important when we are talking specifically about money, right? I know that at some point I'm not going to be around, and I want to have her understand how important it is to manage resources, tools, as it relates to this space of money and finances. So I'm going to give you another example. So we are getting better with the planet, right? We're still using bottled water, right? We go purchase bottles and things of that nature. And at first I was, I wouldn't take her to go to return the bottle, to get the what is it, like the bottle deposit. But we would pay for it, and my household folks would just like throw bottles. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. But I wouldn't take her initially. And I thought about it. I'm like, we buy the cases of water, whatever it is that we do. And I started to take her to show her about the recycling process.
Mhm.
Take the bottles back, they give you money, and then we started going to the bank with the deposits. And it got to the point where, every 2 weeks, or we would go to we still do it, but just not as frequently because we found other water solutions. But when we do it, we still go to the process of getting the deposit back and going to the bank, because she needs to see specifically that money has to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And so it got to a point where that was our thing, in terms of tradition, in terms of changing things, in terms of having her go into the bank, and that be her space and her conversation with the banker, not with me, but with her, because that is her openness conversation with the bank. So when you mention that about, that as like a historical thing that happens within both Black, Hispanic communities, that's really an important conversation. I'm glad that you brought it up, because a lot of times we think that, kids shouldn't be in money, but then they grow up not knowing and making the same mistakes that we made as parents. So I wanted to just bring that back, because I really appreciate it. You know, that's something that it's not just our community, that we all are navigating through and trying to do better within our families going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want to talk about some tips, some tools, tips.
Okay.
Tell us, what can we do? Like, what are the at least three things that you can offer for those who are, interested in overcoming, their and or really improving their relationship with money, and some tips about budgeting that you can offer as well.
Absolutely. On a personal and kind of on a sociological level, I would say identify and label, right, for yourself what your relationship with money looks like, right? Are you avoiding it? Are you like whatever that, like, you have to sit there, reflect, be honest with yourself, identify, and then give it a label. Once you do that and you're and realistic about it, whatever you do after it will make sense. It won't feel so overwhelming to make decisions, because you're making decisions based on what you know, not just what you feel. And anything to do with money, spending it, it's all emotional, right? When we buy anything, like you mentioned earlier about wanting to, you like fashion, that's an emotional purchase, right? You enjoy what it feels like to have that new, I don't know, that new jacket or the new earrings or whatever the case is, right? It's an emotional spend. So just understanding it will help you manage your emotions and your spending. The next is creating a plan, right? Creating that budget or that plan or whatever. Like find out what your goal is gonna be. Like, what is your goal, and create a plan to achieve it. So let's see if I can give an example. Okay, here's and this is a personal example. So my third child, my last one, she is going to be a senior in high school this upcoming school year, which means that if she decides to go to college, and here the word I said if, right, I'm not pressuring her. Totally up to her what she wants to do. If she decides to go to college, I know what I need. I already had to go through college. I know that we are going to need the deposit for the university or the college she's going to. We're going to have to get her dorm ready, right? We're going to have something in place for her, like first month or whatever the case is. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, what's the amount that I need? I need this amount. Okay, fantastic. Now, how am I going to get to that amount? So let's say I say $1,000, right? Because depending on the school, some schools want 300 for deposit, some want 700 for deposit. Let's go with 1,000. I know that that's $83 a month.
Hmm.
How am I going to manage $83 a month? Okay, so if I start, let's say I didn't, I didn't. No, let's say I started last June, because I think it's no May. May is when you have to pay all that. So I started last May and $80 a month. So now, Hazel, what are you gonna do? Are you going to do 20, well, no, what am I doing? $42 every paycheck, because I got paid twice a month on my regular job. Do I want to do the 83 one time? What does that look like for me? What is manageable for me? How am I going to do that? And now I got to do it. Now I got to go ahead and make sure that I am doing what I said I'm going to do. Now, where am I going to put it? Because I put it in my savings. If I leave it in my checking, it's gone. It's going to go away. If I put it in my savings, it's also kind of tempting. And I also want to see my money work for me, right? So I might choose a high yield savings account instead of just a regular savings account, because now it's going to compound interest on itself, and it's not going to just be $1,000. It's going to be a little bit more than $1,000 by the time that I take that money out. So just making those thoughtful decisions, I think, are great. One tip that I tend to give my kiddos when they start with the ones that are starting the job, having jobs and everything, that I think is even good for adults, is automation, right? When you automate your savings, your bills that you have to pay, but also doing it in a way where your income is coming into your savings instead of your checking. We tend to have our income coming to our checking account. And so now we have to be responsible enough to take money out of the checking and put it into the savings account. And then pretty much whatever's left we can spend. That's a mentality we give ourselves. If you put it in the savings, then you almost by guarantee have to budget that and say how much money needs to go into my checking account to pay these bills. that I'm automating, because I know that on this day, this money is coming out for this particular bill, and the money needs to be in a checking account. Now you have automatically saved your money. Your money is automatically going to gain interest if it's still in there when that interest hits at the end of the month. And you don't have to think too much about the savings process because you've already paid yourself first by putting it into your savings account. Even if you don't do any other type of saving, no other investment or anything else, by putting it into your savings account, you are more intentional about creating a budget of what you're spending. And you definitely should also include not only your bills, but your own spending money, as you mentioned for yourself before, what you call BS money. Like I would say budget to zero. Like there's a thing that you could budget to zero. You budget every single dime that comes in. And that includes putting money aside for yourself. So you will say, and take it out in cash if you can. I have a lot of tips. I'm sorry. But like if you can, take it out in cash, because then you're less likely to spend invisible money. If you say to yourself, in this paycheck, I'm only gonna have 150 bucks to spend on frivolous things, whether that's going to get hygiene products or whatever the case is, that's in your pocket. You cannot spend what's not in your pocket, but put it in your pocket. And everything else is in your savings account. Because the only thing in your checking should be what's being. Oops, my light just fell. What is in your the checking will only be what you're taking out of your savings to put in your checking to pay those bills.
Okay, awesome. So, yes, the information and the wealth of information is there. And that is the reason why you should consider connecting with Haizel at all of on Instagram. The link is there, LinkedIn, Making Money Movers on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn as well. And those are important. And I don't want to, um, you know, like take lightly as to what was being stated. This money journey, it's a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. And if you have, any type of, you know, healing or trauma, it takes a while to get through, but you have to trust the process and that things will absolutely positively get better. But the key thing that Haizel mentioned earlier on, if you were listening, is you have to be committed to do the work. You have to be responsible to do the work. And so, on that note, Haizel, I'm not going to let you go just yet because I always like to wrap up with just a few fun, rapid questions. They're like one word, sometimes two. And let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready, I think.
You're always ready. So, what's your favorite borough?
The Bronx.
See, there we go. Without a hesitation. What do you prefer, sneakers or heels?
Sneakers. Tim's if you got it. Like I said, Bronx.
Wow. That now for those who have just came into the New York spectrum, Tim's, it's a New York thing. And when Haizel mentioned it, I was like, yep, she's a native. So there you have it. And pizza or burgers?
Pizza.
Smoothies or ice cream?
Smoothies.
In 3 years, three. What will the community look like that you are serving? And it's not necessarily one word.
Oof.
Yes.
My community will feel more empowered.
Mm. And that's it.
Yes.
And there you have it, friends, family. Haizel, thank you so much for your love, your genuineness, your experience in this space, and making us feel safe to have this conversation, because we both know that it's not one that's an easy conversation. But please do check out Haizel and her team at makingmoneymovers.org, on Instagram, Making Money Movers, on LinkedIn, excuse me, Making Money Movers. And there's no excuse why you can't not find Haizel. So On that note, I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again soon, Hazel. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. So, friends, I'm going to say this was a very loving conversation about money and finance. I know that sometimes when you are talking about money, it can, it can just hit you differently depending on your personal experience. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things that, because I do take notes as well. It's really important that you, Hazel mentioned, to have SMART goals and planning your budget, and be realistic with yourself, and show yourself some grace. That was elevated a number of times throughout this conversation, because again, if you do not or did not grow up with that being the normal table time conversation, then yes, it can be difficult. But you do have resources with Hazel and her team through makingmoneymovers.org to be able to help to support you through that process. Other tips: identify and label, making decisions on what you know. That can only come from if you take the time to understand what your relationship is, understand um, and label what it is specifically, where you have gaps or needs, etc., in that specific space, and create a very, very realistic plan and execute, because none of this stuff will work. We can map out, a plan for you, but if you're not willing to do the work, then it just won't work. The other key thing that I thought was really phenomenal, and it's a very, very good practice, which is automation of savings, but into your savings, your income into your savings first, and then use that cash to help you to budget, whatever it else that you need that will cover your overall expenses. And I have to tell you, when you are being intentional and also putting in specific things that make it work for you individually within your business, you start to feel better. But also, I want to tell you, just from my personal experience, um, during that debt time for me, I was ensuring that I wasn't around people that would negatively impact my or influence me. I was watching what I was reading. I'm sorry, watching when I was on. You can't watch what you read, but you know what I mean. Reading, my spheres of influences, because you're human, so you want to make sure that when you are experiencing these transitions to reach to your goal, it is really on you to protect the spaces and the people who are in your space. And that's what helped me, because the level of influence, specifically with social media and what's being put out there, is very real, specifically these days. So you got to protect your space, specifically if you are mapping out things to do for your future. And guess what? I hope that you continue to take the time to um, want to learn and more and grow specifically about you. I want to again thank Hazel for coming on. I'm going to share again for those who are watching, makingmoneymovers.org, across the platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And also, no shameless plug here. If you are interested in working with us at 11375, we are here to support your efforts, specifically if you're interested in training facilitation, or even within the space of government contracting strategies specifically. We're here for you across the platforms at 11375. I also wanted to plug, because oftentimes when you are looking for uh, additional ways and information to get information, is tons of resources out there. Number of chambers of commerce throughout the five boroughs in upstate New York as well. There are other resources that are within New York City, New York State. There are so many resources that you can find. So take advantage, especially if you are considering entering in a space. There are ways that as you're starting off, you can start budgeting smartly by utilizing the resources that exist within these different spaces. So On that note, I am so glad you joined us today, and please continue to stay tuned for the real journey of entrepreneurship. Thank you for joining. This week, I'm thinking about how dope it is to be in business for myself. Self-employment, business ownership, entrepreneurship, all that good stuff. And why I chose to be in that space. Actually, it wasn't my choice. It was something that I was forced into. But as I'm here in this space, I really think it's dope because I am creating things that I imagine, things that I write on a piece of paper, but it also helps to create, after the number of failures, a real boost of confidence that I have the ability to take something off of a piece of paper, take something that I typed in my phone, and then create it. Your mind is your biggest flex. Welcome to 11375. My name is Anita Pierce, and I am your Chief Experience Officer. At 11375, we offer strategic alignment solutions specific to you and your business goals, and also connecting everything with social impact. So if you are looking for a really amazing organization where we help you to focus your strategy and connecting it with social impact, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are on all the social platforms, and you can contact us at 11375.